is our apologies for absence. Can our secretary confirm whether we have any apologies sent in or not, please?
No apologies, Chair.
Right, thank you. And can I ask all Cabinet members to confirm their presence by reading their names out? I'll start with Councillor Daly.
I'm present here, Chair.
Councillor Homer.
I'm here.
Councillor Jones.
I'm here.
Councillor Oliver. Councillor Oliver, are you online? We'll move on. Councillor Riddle.
Present.
Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, here.
And Councillor Wheelmouth.
Yes, sir, here.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. Councillor Jackson, sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. So for the record, that's Councillor Oliver. So that's a full turnout for the meeting. Thank you. So moving on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting of the 10th of March 2020. Can I agree that they're a correct record?
Agreed, Chair.
And anyone who's got any issues or doesn't agree with that statement, please indicate now. I have no one. Moving on to item 3, disclosure of members' interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare? I have no one indicating. Moving on to item 4, it's a report of the Executive Director of Adult Social Care and Children's Services, and it's the outcomes of the statutory consultation on a proposal to close West Woodburn First School. And I call on Councillor Daly to present this report. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Chair. And obviously members and anyone watching this will have had access to the papers which are published online and have been available prior to this meeting. I'll preface what I'm going to say with that, with a note that we had a scrutiny meeting this morning, which was held online as well. And I believe you will be presenting a bit later on the findings from that scrutiny committee, but I was present during that scrutiny committee to listen to the views of members. So if we come to the substantive report which is presented to Cabinet this afternoon, this is a report which it's a very difficult report to bring because it's never easy to look at closing a school. But this is a process which we have needed to follow for a principal reason, which is that there are no pupils currently in West Woodburn First School, and there have been no applications for new students to attend the school for September 2020. And if you recall, in March, Cabinet agreed to moving to a formal consultation process, and that consultation process took place between the 12th of March and the 19th of April, a formal consultation which was widely promoted and accessible for people to put their views to us as a Cabinet and as a council. During that period, only one representation was received, and it was received from a member of the public who is neither a governor nor a member of staff, certainly not a child, and not the parent of a child in the Hayden Bridge Partnership. The comments received by the person who responded are detailed in the Cabinet report, and we'll come on to some of those a little bit later when Sue Aviston will pick up on a few of the issues that were raised there. So the school, in essence, Chair, has been subject to 4 consultations since January 2018. 3 of those consultations were initiated by us as a council in relation to the organisation of the school, and one of the consultations, one of the 4, was by the governing body of the school to look at a hard federation with Otterburn Primary. And it was very clear that local parents living in the catchment area had some doubts about the viability of the school, as no children were actually registered to attend reception in 2018, in spite of there being 5 children within the catchment area of the school who could actually attend the school. 1 child did join, but they left in September 2019 and has, as I say, since left the school. Because this is classed as a rural school, we have some very clear tests that we need to present in terms of a proposal to close. And those tests Sue Aviston will go through in a little bit more detail. We have looked at alternatives, and as I say, Sue can run through those in more technical detail. If Cabinet are minded today to support the recommendation to close the school, one of the implications of this is an investment of £26,000 into additional school transport to support children within the designated catchment area of West Woodburn to attend alternative provision. But again, reinforcing the point that there are currently no pupils in the school, no children registered to attend for September 2020, and those children living in the catchment area have already elected to move to other schools. Again, Chair, on this point, the feeder schools, the other options for feeder schools in the area are all Ofsted rated as good. It's not an easy thing for us to have to put this recommendation to Cabinet, and I want to put on record my appreciation to the head teacher and to the staff at West Woodburn, who have been, I think, exemplary during this very difficult period. But on that basis, Chair, what I'd like to do is, for the more technical detail of the report, is hand over to Sue Aviston, who can run through particularly those elements on the implications of running a closure notice on a rural school.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Yes, as you've pointed out, there are particular tests that we need to assure ourselves of, that we've looked at prior to the closure of a rural primary school, first school, such as West Woodburn. There's a presumption against the closure of those rural schools. However, this does not mean that a rural school will never close. But as in the case for closure, must be strong and the proposal must be clear and in the best education provision interest in the area. So those proposals for closure should provide evidence to show that we've carefully considered the following alternatives to closure. So again, you'll see within the report on page 13 that the report sets out the Federation of West Woodburn, which was implemented but clearly wasn't supported by the local community. We also need to look at transport implications, their availability and the likely cost of transport. And therefore those elements are set out on page 13 and 14 of your report. And these include, as Councillor Daly has already said, the additional request for funding of £26,600 per annum for transport for the children of West Woodburn to be transported to their nearest school. We also need to determine the size of school and whether this puts children at an education disadvantage in terms of the breadth of the curriculum and the resources available. Again, the size of the school details are set out on page 11 in paragraph 6 and 7 of the report, and the educational performance is set out on page 12 in paragraphs 11, 12 and 13. But also to note that in paragraph 14 also highlights the parental concerns over the educational experience of their children whilst attending West Woodburn. We also need to consider the overall long-term impact on the community, on the closure of a village school and the loss of the building to the community. Again, the detail on this is, and the community impact is set out on page 14, paragraph 12. The implications of the building is set out in paragraph 28 on page 16. It should also be noted that the buildings are not currently used as a community facility, that the village has a village hall that it uses for such activities. We also need to consider wider school organisation and capacity of good schools. And as Councillor Daly has already referred to, all 3 local schools are all rated good by Ofsted, and therefore, again, that detail is set out in paragraphs 22 and 23 of the report, which again confirms the capacity of the local schools. I think that really just brings what I need to say to a conclusion, and therefore Cabinet are asked to approve the proposed closure of West Woodburn First School as set out in the statutory proposal.
Right, thank you for that. And just as chairman, I'll just run through the official running order for this particular item because it's such a crucial issue, the proposal that we're discussing about West Woodburn First School. And we do need to consider all the relevant information for the very first instance. And we've heard already of the presentation from the local authority about the reasons for the closure for this school, and we've heard from the head of school organisation and resources and from the cabinet member, Councillor Wayne Daly. Next, we have the members of cabinet who have the opportunity to ask any questions that they may have about the proposal, and then after that, we can hear from anyone who has responded to the statutory notice which set out this proposal and have asked for their written representations heard at this meeting. However, no one has made such representations today. And then I will ask Councillor Daly to report on the outcome of the consideration of this matter at the meeting of the Families and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee this morning in the absence of the scrutiny chair. And then I'll ask the proposers if there are any final points they wish to make. And after that, I will invite cabinet members to debate the proposals and come to a decision. But before that, I will ask members to confirm that they have read and understood the legal advice provided by the legal advisor to the cabinet on the law and guidance we need to be aware of in arriving at our decision. And this was sent to our members last week. And then at the very end, we will announce as a cabinet our decision, and a written record of the decision and the reasons for it will be published on the council's website. So we'll go back to the running order. Like I said, we've just heard from the head of school organisation and resources. And next we have the opportunity for members of the cabinet, if they wish to ask any questions about the proposal and the detail in it. So has anyone got any questions at this stage? I need the cabinet secretary to confirm that no one's indicating.
That's correct, Chair. Oh, Councillor Daly has a question.
Chair, sorry, it was remiss of me to mention one thing, and this was raised at scrutiny this morning. On page 10 of the report, it actually relates to a typo error in the original notification for a proposal to close. And in that original notification, which was put out, there were 6 or 7 references very clearly to the proposed closure of West Woodburn. In the last paragraph of the original notice, it actually, instead of saying closure of West Woodburn, it actually said extend the age range of West Woodburn. I raised that at scrutiny this morning, and we had legal advice, and it is very clear that the media, which has been quite significant in this, it has been covered in press for some months. The detail of the original report, which clearly referenced closure, and details of further subsequent reports all mention proposed closure. So there is, unless any officer wants to add anything to what I'm saying, a very clear indication, which scrutiny were very clear about this morning, that every single one of the proposals that we've run through in terms of the informal consultation and formal consultation has been around the proposal to close West Woodburn, and that is referenced on page 10, that we did pick up that typo error. It has been addressed, but again, I think it's worthwhile reinforcing the point to all members that this is a proposal to close West Woodburn School. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other questions on the detail? I don't think there are any.
Can I,
Yes?
sorry, Chair, can I just ask a quick question? If we were to make the decision not to to close the school today, what would happen to the school?
We have a drastic drop in income.
I think the Director of Education can answer that one.
Sorry, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Nick, could you just repeat that? What would happen to the school if we didn't close?
Yes, that was the question. So if we chose not to close the school today, what would happen to it?
It would remain as an empty school because there aren't any parents who wish to send their children to that school, nor would we be in a position to enforce parents going to that school. So it would remain as an empty school until somebody chose to admit a child to the school.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on. And now I'll ask Councillor Daly to report on the outcome of the consideration of this matter at the meeting of Families and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee this morning.
Chair, before I do that, I just noticed on my screen Councillor Riddle was indicating he wished to speak.
Okay, Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just had one question, and that was on page 16, paragraph 28, land and buildings. If we were to close the school, there's a sizable playing field there, and also the school benefits from solar PV panels. What will happen, both the feed-in tariff and the future use of the land?
Sue, do you want to take those queries, because we've raised those separately, haven't we?
We have, Kath, yes, sorry. Yes, basically, the feed-in tariff will continue on the building because the building will still be operational until August. Again, when the building is no longer used as a school, if the decision today is made to close the school, then we'll look as a local authority in the first instance if there is an alternative use for the building. So there is an option that we would use it to run some of our services or other things from the building in the first instance. And sorry, Councillor Riddle, the other question around the playing field?
Yeah, just future protection of the playing field which adjoins the village green.
Yeah, that's right. As you might be aware, there again, you can't just simply sell off school playing field and build on them. There are regulations around that, and school playing fields need to be protected. So again, would be subject to a further consultation if the council hadn't got any use for it for themselves, or there wasn't a community interest in taking on that responsibility.
Thank you. I'm happy with that answer.
Just to be clear about the community interest, well, not to be clear, but just to highlight that, we would always want to, if we can't use the building, we would always want to see whether or not there are any opportunities for the community to use the building. There was no appetite for that, or there was no questions around that during the consultation, but obviously it would be, you know, it's a building in the middle of a community that we would want to see whether or not there was an effective use for.
Okay, yeah, good, thank you for that. And Councillor Daly, what was the outcome of the Family and Children's Scrutiny Committee this morning?
Okay, Chair. The Scrutiny Committee was held at 10:30 this morning in virtual form as we are now. So what I'll do is, for the purposes of this being a very clear statutory process which needs to be followed, I'll read out exactly what the summary was. So it's a report of the Family and Children Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 12th of May 2020, and it relates to the outcome of the statutory consultation on a proposal to close West Woodburn First School. The report was presented to the committee at their meeting on the 12th of May 2020 by Councillor Wayne Daly, me, Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Children's Services. Sue Aviston, Head of School Organisation and Resources, was also in attendance to respond to comments and queries from members. Following some discussion around points raised during the consultation, the committee sought clarification on plans for the school estate and was offered reassurance that the community views would be taken into account when determining the future use of the estate. The committee agreed to advise the Cabinet that they supported the recommendations as outlined in the report, and that has been summarised by Councillor Guy Renner-Thompson, who's Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Chair.
Right, thank you for that. And then next, I'll ask the proposers of these recommendations if there are any final points they wish to make.
Chair, I have nothing further to add other than to recommend the report for the closure of West Woodburn First School to Cabinet this afternoon.
Right, thank you for that. And now, are there any comments in the form of a debate about these proposals from Cabinet members?
Yeah, Councillor Riddle has a comment.
Right. Councillor Riddle?
Thank you, Chairman. As the local member, obviously, local community, I've got quite a few small schools in my patch. But, you know, I think the County Council have bent over backwards to try and keep West Woodburn School going. There was a considerable outcry originally when we were talking about reorganisation. This was thought to be going to be the way forward, but unfortunately parents have voted with their feet and they've mainly taken their children to Bellingham, I think. One or two actually commute out of the area as well. So unfortunately, we're in a position where we have a school that's actually been empty for a few months now. And really, there's no prospect of more children in the near future. So, you know, regrettably, I don't like to see the loss of any village school. I think it's even worse at the moment with the fact that, you know, we've got the COVID-19, we've got the pub closed there as well. And, you know, whether it's going to reopen after this is very doubtful as well. So, you know, the school supports the village shop and village life, etc. But unfortunately, if we haven't got pupils, then we cannot keep it open, in my opinion.
Can someone unmute Councillor Jackson?
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, I muted you previously because it sounded like you had a broadcast playing in the background, which was coming over a little bit slower than everything else and giving a little bit of feedback. So I muted your microphone previously. If you do have something on in the background, it may be worth just putting it a little bit quieter for the time being, if that's okay. Sorry to interrupt. But you will need to unmute yourself to speak again. Thank you.
Chair, you're still muted.
Back on. Any other comments from Council Cabinet members? No? Right, well, in that case, I think we can have a vote on the recommendations. There are 5 recommendations in the report, and we'll just take them all on block together, and we'll go through the cabinet, and cabinet members will say either for or against or abstain. So as chairman, I'll go first, and I vote for the recommendations. Next we have Councillor Daly.
Chair, voting for the recommendations.
Councillor Homer.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Oliver.
For the recommendations.
Councillor Riddle.
With a heavy heart, for the recommendations.
Councillor Sanderson.
For the recommendation.
And Councillor Wearmouth.
For.
Right, so those recommendations are carried, and in the usual way with these school reports, we will set out on the council's website the full set of reasons for our support of those recommendations. Okay, well, thank you very much for dealing with that issue, which we've been considering for quite a number of months now. And we'll move on to Appendix B, which is approvals for school organisational capital projects. Councillor Daly, do you want to introduce this section of the meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the report, Appendix B, is relatively self-explanatory. We're asking to do 2 things. One is to delegate authority to award the contract for capital works in relation to Haltwhistle Primary School to the sum of 2.65 million, and to St Bennet Biscop Catholic Academy for 2.5 million. Previously approved by myself and the Executive Director of Adult Social Care and Children's Services. So it's about a delegation of the authority for the work to be started. The second element of the recommendations in front of Cabinet today is to approve an allocation of £411,656 from the Special Provision Capital Grant Fund for pupils with educational health care plans to purchase modular classrooms and associated works at Hillcrest Special School, which is in Cramlington, again delegating that authority to myself and to the Director of Adult, Children and Social Care. And I just want to make one point, if I can, because I know that Sue Alston will come in after this. When we use the term modular classroom, it is not the modular classrooms that we remember when we were at school, which were boxes, which were leaky and horrible. These are state-of-the-art learning modules, which are Wi-Fi linked, fully heated, fully insulated. In some cases, they're even better than normal schools. So I just really want to make the point that, you know, we are investing in some really good kit, particularly for Hillcrest, which is a special school with around 93 pupils in Cramlington. But there are 2 recommendations, Chair. I don't know whether Sue wants to come in on any more detail around these.
I think basically, Wayne, you've covered everything in what you've said. The only thing that I'd like to say is obviously these decisions have previously been made by Cabinet. It's just actually awarding the contract now for those works. Some of them, as you've already pointed out, are really urgent in terms of having enough places for special needs children for September for Hillcrest, and also as a result of Meadowdale Academy changing its age range in Bedlington, the additional places we need to create at St Bennet Biscop ready for September as well. And very much supporting your view around modular classrooms are very, very different. The head teacher at Hillcrest has already been to see the modular construction that she'll be getting and has been absolutely delighted with the quality of what she'll be receiving. Okay.
Well, no, thank you for that. And as leader of the council, I'd just like to add my absolute support for these investments. They are quite clearly a part of our major programme of investing in the school estate and in education generally right across the county. It's not just about the huge high school investment that we're putting in, but we're investing in school capacity and school improvements right across the county. And here in particular, we've got yet another investment in special school education. And I'm particularly pleased that we are creating the capacity to actually look after children with special needs within our own community. And that's our ultimate aim, is to look after children in Northumberland within the borders of our county so that they can stay close to their families and close to their communities. So I'm really pleased that with this as a part of our overall package of educational improvements and investments. So very pleased about that. Do we have any other comments or questions from any other cabinet members on this?
Chair, if I could just come in there. Councillor Daly here. Again, just reinforcing exactly what you've said there. And I think, and the message particularly for the public is, absolutely we had a record-breaking investment into our school stock, but particularly at this particular time with the coronavirus and everything that's happening, what we're demonstrating is that as a council, we're still getting on with our day job, and this is really part of that business as usual. So I think that sends a really positive message out to our communities, Chair.
Chair, you're muted again.
Councillor Jackson, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, it was on the mute. Yeah, I'm just asking council members, cabinet members, to cast their votes for the recommendations, either for or against or abstaining. So as chairman of the cabinet and the meeting, I'll start by voting for the recommendations. Councillor Daly.
For the recommendations.
Councillor Homer.
For, Chair.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones. Must be offline. Councillor Oliver.
For, Chair.
Councillor Riddle.
For.
Councillor Sanderson.
Also for.
And Councillor Wearmouth.
For.
Well, that's fine. Well, that's very definitely carried.
Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jackson,
Yep.
mine was for as well.
All right. That was Councillor Jones. So that's absolutely unanimous.
Councillor
Thank you
Jones.
all very much for that. Right, moving on to item number 5. And that's the update on the resettlement scheme for refugees and the resettlement scheme proposal for 2020-21. Councillor Riddle, can you introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. The County Council had agreed to enter into this scheme, and it was supposed to come to a close in March of this year. I think it's actually wanting to be extended to the transition period. We've been very successful, and we've met our commitment to obligation to resettle 48 families into the community. And what this paper is really asking is to obtain members' assent to progress the current scheme with a further 12 refugees for the year 2021.
Right, no, thank you for that, Councillor Riddle. I, for one, as leader of the council, are very proud of the work that we do to resettle refugees. We do get government support for this, but I think we do have a way in Northumberland of welcoming people into our communities, and as long as we've got the capacity to do that, within our county. We're an open county and a very friendly and a welcoming county. And the results of our refugee settlement programme so far have been exemplary. So thank you to everyone involved in the programme. Any other comments or questions from Cabinet members on this one? No, I have none. So in that case, we'll go straight to the agreement or otherwise of the recommendations, and I'll run through the Cabinet members again. As leader of the council, I'm voting for the recommendations. Councillor Daly.
Voting for the recommendations, Chair.
Councillor Homer.
For, Chair.
Councillor Jones. Moving on to Councillor Oliver.
For, Chair.
Councillor Riddle.
For.
Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, for the recommendation.
Councillor Wearmouth.
For.
And do we have Councillor Jones on yet? Well, it's carried by a majority in any case, but I think Councillor Jones would be in support as well. So thank you all very much for that one. And now we move on to the summary of new capital proposals from the Officer Capital Strategy Working Group. And the first item is in relation to the Highways Maintenance Challenge Fund and a whole programme of repairs and essential maintenance to steel bridges. And we've been extremely successful in gaining government support from central government funding and a grant award of £3.7 million to maintain these bridges, which are so important to the sort of transport infrastructure of our county. I think Councillor Sanderson, do you have some sort of comments on this particular aspect of the report?
Yes, if I may, please. Just take a second to underline what you've said. This council has got a very good record of bidding into challenge funds. A few years ago, we got 5.5 million for our traditional stone bridges. Then we got 5 million for our important rural roads. And now this time we're getting 3.7 million for the repairs and renewal of 8 very important steel bridges across the county. We're going to contribute over £1 million towards this scheme, making the total scheme almost £5 million. Within the next couple of years, we will see these really important bridges restored to their former glory. So I would just simply like to thank the government for this idea of having challenge funds anyway for these important items, but also thanks to our officers who have been so successful in the bidding. I'm very grateful to them.
Chair, we can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was on mute. Any other comments or questions on this item? Right, we'll take the voting on all the capital projects all at the end altogether, but we'll consider each individual item as we go through. The next item is in relation to...
Chair, Councillor Sanderson wants to come in.
Exactly, yeah. Flood and Coastal Protection Programme, Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The details are in the papers. We're talking here about 3 very important, quite small, but very important local flooding issues that will be dealt with, and thanks to the Environment Agency for their support with those. They're across the county in Morpeth, Berwick and Cramlington. But the biggest item in this, without doubt, is the pre-construction and the beginning of the work that we're going to do at Lynemouth Bay. For years and years and years, this was used as a dumping ground for waste for a number of a number of organisations and businesses and people, and it was really a very tragically serious and bad thing to do. And we are now left, as the tides have come in and started to wash away the sand that protects this this landfill, we're now left with this to tidy up. And for years, this project was considered to be too expensive and too big a project to actually undertake. But earlier this year, we took that decision that we would actually grasp the nettle and begin work to clear up this beach once and for all. So this talks here about the pre-construction activities, about getting everything geared up, starting to talk about the organisation of how we're going to deal with this, so that we can begin work as quickly as we can on this enormous project. It is a very large project, but it will have very large benefits for the local people there, and it's only the right thing for us to do.
Chair, could I speak briefly? Thank you. I think it's worth well, first of all, thanking Councillor Sanderson and the officers in the flood team and the local services. There's been a huge amount of work. This is a problem that's been allowed to continue and build for decades, and he's shown sort of decisive leadership in actually grasping it and finding a solution. It's on the radar of the Regional Flood and Coastal Commission, and we'll be working with them to try and find extra money for the project. We'll be working with the Coal Board, and we'll be working with the Environment Agency and DEFRA. It's a really important project. This is a problem that is occurring right across the country, and it's really important that we sort of blaze a trail in terms of actually dealing with it and solving the problem, once and for all.
Absolutely, no, thank you very much for that. Okay, can we move on to the next item, which is the provision of solar PV and ground source heat pumps for the former Lindisfarne Middle School site. Again, this is just a further actually putting into practice the council's climate change proposals and promises. We're investing in our own property to save thousands of tons of carbon dioxide and protecting the future of our county and the property that we're in charge of as a county council. So I'm pleased to propose that particular investment as part of our climate change package, and there'll be more of that in the weeks and months to come. So I'm happy with that. And any comments or questions on that particular one? No. Well, in that case, I'll take the proposals, and we've got all of the proposals out before us for all three projects. Again, as chair of the meeting, I vote in favour of all three. Moving on to Councillor Daly.
Support fully all the recommendations, Chair.
Councillor Homer.
Supporting all. Thank you.
Councillor Jones. Moving on to Councillor Oliver.
The microphone won't come. Oh,
right, sorry, Councillor James, we got you there. Good.
Councillor Jackson, my microphone's just come back on, so I do support the proposals.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver.
I support all three proposals also.
Councillor Riddle.
Support.
Councillor Sanderson.
And also support. Yep.
And Councillor Weirman.
Support all proposals.
Right, thank you very much for that. I have one matter of urgent business from Councillor Daly. Councillor Daly.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for this. Members will be aware that back on March the 23rd, there was a national directive to close all of our schools. And I think this is a really good opportunity for me to put a huge thank you out there to everyone who's been working with us, particularly our schools, to actually offer our schools for key workers and for vulnerable children. I just wanted, if I can, Chair, just to give you yesterday's figures of attendance. So there was a national directive to close schools for all children except those of key workers and vulnerable children. Yesterday in Northumberland, we had 147 schools and alternative providers operating. We had 1,376 children attending those schools, which was made up of 865 children from families of key workers and 390 children from the vulnerable category. The numbers fluctuate. Last week we had just over 1,400 attending. But what's been consistent throughout all of this is a relatively high number of pupils attending schools fitting into those criteria up and down the county. So what I wanted to do in this very, very public forum is, first of all, to thank every single school and every single teaching assistant, cook, caretaker, everyone who has come together to actually allow those schools to be there to help in the battle against the coronavirus, because were they not able to do that, it would have had a significant impact on the ability, particularly of our NHS and some of those key workers, to be actually able to go out there and to do their job. And on that point, I also want to thank as well our youth service, who've been tremendous, our social workers who've been absolutely amazing during this whole process, and the hidden heroes around our children's homes and one of our secure children's areas who've actually remained open and fully supporting our vulnerable children. So, you know, on that point, Chair, I think it's also noted that the support from County Council education team, from the Children's Services, has been phenomenal. So I want to put that on record. We have, as a council, coordinated a whole series of things. And without that central coordination, without that leadership which came from the centre, from Kath, from Dean, from Sue, from the whole team which sits in there, this would not have happened in as professional and good a way as it actually has. So I just wanted to put that on record, Chair.
Absolutely. You know, there's been just so much unseen work going on right across our county, but particularly in our schools, to keep them open and running to as large an extent as we can. And I think what we can say as well as that is that we're working to make sure that whenever it's possible to open them up, we're planning to make them safe, so that both the staff and the pupils will be safe in our schools whenever it's possible to actually expand that provision from where we are now. So thank you for that, Councillor Daly.
Chair, Councillor Dungworth would like to speak.
Yes? Is that someone wanting to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If I can just add thanks from the opposition group as well to all those staff who've kept our services going. Some of it is not seen by the public, but actually enables the rest of it to happen as well. So I think it's really important that we do recognise that. The schools, I can only speak for this area of Northumberland, but have been outstanding in their response. And I think we just need to be thinking very clearly, and this is maybe a bit of a question for Wayne, about how we do go forward, because I think some schools are in a better position than others are. I am a little concerned at this blanket ruling about year 6 going back, which is nonsensical in a 3-tier system. It makes a little sense maybe in 2-tier, but doesn't make it for, so, you know, our transition years are different. And we need to have the flexibility to approach those. But my main reason for coming on was just to say thank you, along with the administration, to all our staff.
Chair, if I could, oh, he's still muted. Chair, you're still muted.
I was just going to say, Councillor Daly, can you sort of respond to that, and we'll sort of wrap that issue up?
absolutely. So yesterday, when the details came out around the potential movement to early years resumption and to year 6, one of the first things that I did was flag up that, in fact, that did not take into account that Northumberland is a mixed economy of 2 and 3 tier. So we are absolutely on that. And shortly before this cabinet meeting commenced, I had a meeting with Kath McAvoy-Carr, our Director of Children's Services. We have been talking to the DFE about giving us the flexibility to be able to potentially look at our own model to support those middle schools, because that will be in year 4 and year 8 on their transition points. But we absolutely are onto this. I've also been dealing directly with Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who sits in the Westminster Cabinet, on this matter as well. So we will do everything we possibly can, but we're also, most importantly, talking to the heads of those schools. We'll be talking to them about what it is they think is part of that solution. But we totally understand that, and we will be engaging with those heads to look at, if we can, putting in a localized solution, Chair.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I don't have any other urgent business, so I'd like to officially call this meeting to a close. Thank you all for participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.